You are listening to the Dare to Love podcast with your hosts, Sonika Tinker and Christian Peterson, founders of LoveWorks.
I am looking very forward to being with you today, talking about 10 different ways to change a negative belief. Now, there is no doubt that what we believe influences who we are, it affects the choices we make, and it ultimately determines the results we produce. Beliefs shape what we see, what we experience, and what we expect. More than anything else, and probably the most important, our beliefs determine how we feel. If we want to increase our effectiveness in business, if we want to empower our relationships, we want to enhance our joy in life, we've got to improve the quality of our thinking. We need to be able to shift our limiting beliefs to empowering ones, to replace the negative thoughts with positive thoughts, and to nurture internal conversations that inspire us to risk living our full potential. We must be able to acquire the beliefs of winners if we're going to be a winner, the beliefs of successful entrepreneurs if we want to be a successful business person. We must work as much, if not more, with our minds as with our behaviors if we're going to be able to reinvent ourselves and create ourselves anew, whether that's in business, marriage, sports, health, school, family, work, you name it. One of the things I remember hearing recently is that our beliefs lead to a destination. And a really great question to ask ourselves is, are our beliefs taking us to where we want to go, or are they in fact leading us far away from our dreams, far away from who we want to really be and what we want to create for ourselves in our lives? And if we in fact want to shift the direction in which we are moving in our lives, then it is likely that we need to be willing and able to shift the beliefs that are keeping us where we are and affecting and limiting our ability to step outside our current reality and create something new. So let's start here with, first of all, exploring what is a belief exactly. So a belief is a recurrently practiced thought that is held as real or true. It's basically a thought or a statement that we repeat over and over to ourselves, both consciously and unconsciously, until it becomes second nature. It's a little bit like water to a fish. It's so much a part of who we are that we are often unaware of our beliefs. Beliefs are so successfully and habitually reinforced that they become an unconscious, insidious force that filters how we look, what we see, what we experience, how we manifest reality. And we're so accustomed to these filters that we don't even realize that we are not actually experiencing the world as it is. In fact, most beliefs go unnoticed and unexamined our entire lives. And despite that, beliefs have great power, right? They've been known to heal, to kill, to motivate, to immobilize, to inspire. Our very happiness and sex our sex too, actually, our very happiness and success depends on what we believe. So we want to be able to shift our beliefs to be able to create more of what we want. Luckily, our beliefs can be examined and they can be changed. Any old belief can be replaced with a new practice thought. So in this time here together, we're going to explore how to shift our beliefs and how to actively create ourselves and our lives to be more to our liking. Now, how do I decide what beliefs to change? Like, that might be a good starting place here. Like, how do you know which ones you want to change? Well, in order to shift a negative belief to a positive one, we have to first take stock of the disempowering beliefs that grip us. right? We usually want to change the ones we don't like and the ones that make us feel bad. So observation is always the first key to changing any unwanted behavior, any unwanted thought. And it is through observation that we can bring these unconscious beliefs and thoughts up to our conscious awareness and then decide which ones we want to actively change. And the best way to bring those to the surface is through self-examination. So one of the first things I would recommend is for you to journal and notice, first of all, if you already do journal, you can just look at what you've already written and get a good sense of what your beliefs are. You can pay attention to what you talk about when you talk about to your girlfriends or you complain about your relationship. Often the things we say are reflecting the beliefs and the stories that we live inside of, that we hold. So you can go back and you can see what you have already written about, or you can plow ahead here and pick any topic to explore. Business, life, relationship, yourself, children, health, sex, religion, money, home, your body, and just write about it. Write about what you think about it, what you believe is possible in that particular area, in that domain. And as you write about your thoughts and feelings on any particular topic, you're going to see your beliefs all over the place. So you can simply write a narrative and go back and kind of pick out the beliefs that you notice are hidden throughout your writing. Another thing you can do is deliberately choose a time to talk with somebody out loud and to pick someone who's going to take on the role of helping you listen for and pull out the beliefs as you talk. Because we are often blind to our own beliefs. So an outside ear can be extremely valuable in helping us uncover the unconscious thought patterns that are playing out in the background. And you can have your partner repeat back or write down the beliefs they hear as they hear them and have them share that with you later. Now, as you explore a topic, you're going to, want to notice specifically where you're unhappy and dissatisfied. Unhappiness is our biggest clue that we are holding beliefs that are inconsistent with who we want to be and what we want to create going forward. So you can use your complaints, your upsets, your disappointments, your fears to point you to beliefs you want to change. Same thing with feelings, right? Anger, fear, panic, doubt, depression, sadness, resentment. All intense feelings are tied to strong beliefs. So anytime you're feeling an intense emotion, it's a good time to notice what you're thinking and to explore what beliefs are embedded in your thoughts around those feelings. You can also ask yourself questions like, what don't you like about who you are or what you do? What experience in your life do you want to change? Spout off a list of things you think you can't do or things you can't say. Say why you think you aren't being successful in your life, why you don't have the relationship you really want right now in your life. Complaints and upsets are imbued with limiting negative beliefs. You can also pay attention to yourself in unpleasant situations, especially when you feel emotionally immobilized from taking some action, when you feel fear, when you feel scared, when you feel scared, when you feel insecure. There's nothing like being in the middle of an unpleasant feeling or experience to take note of the thoughts and beliefs that are running through your mind. Another powerful way to discover your operating beliefs is to listen to winners and successful people talk about their beliefs. Sometimes when we hear somebody else and what they're believing, it makes us aware of what we would like to believe that we don't, right? Which is another back-ended way of getting at our own beliefs. For example, I remember hearing a successful business person say that he just assumes everybody he meets wants to, buy from him, that he has something of value to contribute to them, and that they want to be his partner and they want to help him fulfill his dreams, just like he wants to help them fulfill their dreams and their visions. And when he walks up to somebody, right, he just imagines that there's an opening and an opportunity. And hearing that made me aware of contrasting beliefs I've sometimes had when I see a difference I can make somebody and insecurity arises. So take time, and I would recommend as we go through this podcast here together, is pay attention to what are some of the negative limiting beliefs you would like to change. And then pick one in particular that you would like to work with through the duration of this presentation so that you have something in particular that you can apply what we're about to give you here and actively begin to work with shifting a negative belief. Now, there's several ways to successfully change beliefs, and I'm going to present to you here 10 different strategies in no particular order. So feel free to listen to all of these and then choose ones that appeal to you the most for changing your beliefs. Don't feel like you got to try to do all of these. Just one strategy, if it really works for you, will be enough for you to successfully begin to turn around a successful belief.
You are listening to the Dare to Love podcast with your hosts, Sonika Tinker and Christian Peterson, founders of LoveWorks.
Now remember, a belief is a practiced thought that is held as true. So when you question the truth of it, it breaks down. And as a result, in the strategies I'm about to give you, many questions are asked. So I'm going to be asking you many, many questions for you to begin to question the solidity of your differing beliefs. So if you don't take the time to explore answering those questions, you're not going to get the same value as you will as if you actively engage with them. So be sure once you pick a belief to really play with engaging in these questions and these strategies as we run through them here. So in the many strategies that follow, for the purposes of illustration here, I'm going to take on the belief to play with here. Let's just pick one that I'm not, I can't make enough money. We could do that one. I'm unlovable. So let's pick that one since we're relationship-centered people here. So we'll just focus in on that one. I'm not lovable. So the first strategy for beginning to shift a belief is to examine it, question its validity, create doubt. So let me say a little bit more about that. A first step to shifting a belief is to non-judgmentally and curiously inquire into the belief. Sometimes examining a belief by itself is enough to shed new thinking on an old belief and begin to tear it apart. So you can ask questions like, why do I believe this? Why do I believe I'm unlovable? What evidence or proof do I have to support the truth of that belief? Right? What evidence have I collected over the years to reinforce my thinking I'm unlovable? Where did that belief come from? When's the first time I remember feeling that feeling associated with not being lovable? When's the first time I remember making the decision that I'm unlovable? Did my parents have a similar belief? Did it get passed on from them to me? Did I kind of take it on? Was there a particular incident in my life that happened that had me make that up about myself? Where did that belief come from? Keep breaking the belief down into tiny little bits, because every generalization will break itself at some point. So you can ask additional questions like, well, is it true all the time that I'm not lovable? According to who? Was there ever a time in my life when I was lovable? What would happen if I was wrong about not being lovable? What is true about this belief? Keep going until you've begun to poke holes in it. And I'll tell you, the second strategy here that I'm about to give you is probably my favorite way to poke holes in a belief. And that is to look for evidence for the contrary. You might have heard this saying. I think it was a nice nin who said, right, we never see things as they are. We see things as we are. We don't see things as they are. Everything is filtered through our beliefs. Since we're never seeing the world as it is, we filter out conflicting evidence to our beliefs. So if I have a belief, for example, that I'm not lovable, I've been collecting evidence for where I'm not lovable all of these years, and my mind filters out unconsciously all the places where I'm lovable, because that evidence to the contrary doesn't fit in with my story about myself. So my mind just filters it out. I don't even notice those. I only notice all of the places where somebody says or does something that reinforces this experience in myself of me not being lovable. What's great about that is we only see what fits in with our belief, which proves and reinforces the belief. So a simple, really powerful way, very effective way of changing a belief is to actively look for evidence for the opposite of whatever it is you believe. It's the best way to dismantle a belief. So I could say, it's not true that I'm not lovable. My children love me immensely. My husband, out of all the people he could possibly be with in the world, chose me. He actually moved from another country to come live with me. He tells me every day how much he loves and adores me. Obviously there is lots of evidence to support that I'm loved. I have many good friends in my life, great community. I just got an email today from a man we spent time with last night saying how much he absolutely loved getting to be with us, how grateful he is to have us as his friends and his community, how supported and loved he feels by us. So I just got that today. That's more evidence for where I'm lovable. Take on a project or a practice of looking for evidence for the opposite of your belief. And as often as possible, when you notice them, speak them out loud. Wow, thanks for loving me. Thanks for expressing your love for me in that way. There's something about expressing appreciation out loud that helps you notice and take it in more. And as I said earlier, right, it begins to poke holes in the I'm not lovable belief, the more evidence you collect for the opposite. A third strategy for being able to shift and change a negative belief is to reframe the belief. An event or a thought has no meaning on its own. It just is. We give events meaning. We give our thoughts meaning according to our beliefs, our values, our likes and dislikes. In other words, the meaning is dependent on the context and who's experiencing it. So we can reframe a belief, which is a way of changing the way I perceive something, and so I change the meaning. When the meaning changes, my response and my behavior changes as well. So an example of reframing, I'm not lovable might be, I am so great at being myself with all of my perfections and imperfections, all of the places in me that aren't perfect, that I give permission to other people to be themselves, and that has people love me more. That has them love themselves more. That has them love me more. So I basically reframe I'm not lovable. What's kind of good about all these places in me that aren't lovable is that it lets other people love their imperfections as well, and they feel so safe and seen and loved by me and free to be themselves that has them love me more. So I've just reframed I'm unlovable to be this good thing that actually brings me more love. Which brings us to the fourth strategy, and they're a bit connected here. And that is to explore the gift behind your belief. One of the most potent questions you can ask about your belief is, what is it giving me? What is good about my believing this? How has it helped me? What has it given me? There are always benefits to our negative beliefs. There's always gifts we receive. One tool I've used in my own coaching practice to help people access the gifts they receive from their negative beliefs is to ask, if some part of you were giving you this belief or this experience, if we're talking about an event that happened, right? If some part of you gave this to you to help you learn something, to help you grow or to empower you in some way, what do you think there is there for you to learn? How has this event or this belief contributed to you? How has it helped to make you who you are? And this is a very powerful question to ask and can pull out hidden opportunities for you to use for this. So you can actually use this belief and to see where you have already used this belief to expand yourself beyond where you previously thought possible. I mean, I will say for myself, one of the gifts of me not thinking I'm lovable, or even more for me really, is the I'm not good enough, is what has been really valuable about me thinking that and believing that is that has been an incredible impetus for me to go get education, to learn about myself, to engage in tons of personal development work, and to work with coaches and therapists and take tons of workshops and get degrees in psychology and sociology and sexuality and get all my hours to become a therapist and get a master's in social work. And like, who I am has in large part been fueled by this belief that I'm not quite enough. I'm not quite lovable enough. I'm not quite good enough at what it is I do. And so that belief has kept me growing and learning. And specifically the I'm not lovable part has had me focus a good bunch of my life on how do I feel love? How do I feel connected? How do I feel really close to another human being? How do I help other people feel lovable? How do I help other people find love? Right? So those are all really great gifts that I've gotten from this belief of I'm not lovable, I'm not enough. So you can do the same thing as well. Look to see where in your life it has actually been of benefit for you to have this negative belief. Because I really believe that this is one of my beliefs, is that, I just notice everybody has negative beliefs. So there must be some positive, good reason for us to have them. And, I really can get to see how much our negative beliefs and negative experiences have really helped shape our ability to grow and learn and contribute to other people, and even to have compassion for other people who have experienced similar situations or similar feelings and thoughts that we have. So yeah, explore that with yourself. What is the gift this belief has given you? And once you see the gift, that will help you resist it less and actually appreciate it more. And in the process of allowing it, it has less negative charge and less negative influence. All right, the fifth strategy for shifting a belief. Take 100% responsibility for your belief. If you think about it, right, most disempowering beliefs give us an excuse to stay safe, to not take action, to resist change, to blame other people or situations for our experience of reality, for our current predicament, right? We get validation for being and staying exactly where we are with many of our unworkable beliefs. A lot of people will say, oh yeah, you're totally right. We get a lot of support sometimes to stay where we are. If you might actually find that you prefer to blame and complain rather than to actually take the actions necessary to be more lovable in your life, to be enough, to create more money, to create a better situation for yourself, whatever your issue is, you might actually see that some part of you enjoys having this belief because you get to use it to keep yourself comfortable, to stay inside your comfort zone and avoid taking risks. We're often much more comfortable with living inside of our beliefs and our negative beliefs and taking a victim stance than being 100% responsible for what we believe, what we feel, what we do. So a really great way to shift out of victim around your negative belief is to Take 100% responsibility for it. Own it. Choose it. Ask yourself, what do you get to be right about having this belief? What does it get you to, what does it help you avoid? What actions do you get to not take as long as you believe that? How does it keep you safe? What do you get to be right about? And say it from a powerful place, like, wow, I get to use it to stay stuck here. Like, take responsibility for, like, I choose to have this belief, even if you don't feel like you're choosing it. Like, once you own it, some part of me is choosing this. Some part of me is continuing to keep this particular belief alive. Some part of me wants that. And when you can take ownership of it, it moves you from victim to power and shifts your relationship with your negative belief. And just that by itself begins to loosen its grip, its hold over you. So, another really great way to take responsibility, and I'll tell you, this is one of my favorite ways, and it's kind of fun actually too, is if I want to learn how I'm keeping myself unlovable and what's really great about having that belief and what do I do to keep it going. A really great exercise to do, and I've done this in many workshops, where I get, I sit myself down in front of 3 or 4 people and I pretend that they are coming to learn from me how to feel unlovable. How to make sure I feel like I'm not enough and I'm not lovable, and how I keep love away from my life, and how I keep myself getting hurt, not having the kind of relationships I want. And so I, as the master, because obviously I'm really good at that, I have got a lot of experience being unlovable. I've been collecting lots of evidence over the years for how to do that. I totally know how to train people in how to make sure they stay unlovable. And as I go through saying all the ways I keep myself unlovable, right? When somebody gives you a compliment, for example, you got to make sure you discount it. You got to assume that they're lying, that they're just saying it because they feel guilty, or they're just trying to make you feel better, but really they don't believe it. So you want to make sure you discount every compliment you ever get. Anytime somebody starts to notice you or look at you, you turn away and you focus in on something else, because you can't let them, you can't take them in, because that's going to muck with your story. So you got to make sure it's going to muck with your beliefs. So you got to make sure you turn away anytime somebody comes towards you. Really question anytime somebody says they love you. There's got to be something wrong with them, right? Because they're obviously not seeing the total truth about how unlovable I am. So you got to make sure, if that ever happens to you, when somebody says they love you, you got to question and look for what's wrong with them that would have them not see the truth about your unlovability. So, like that. That's a fun example. And really, everything you say are all of the ways you keep that negative belief alive for yourself. So that is a really great way to play with taking responsibility for your negative belief and moving yourself out of victim and power. The other thing I'll say about that too is everything that comes out of your mouth is a behavior you can change to help yourself feel more lovable, to help yourself change your own negative belief. So very powerful, very, very powerful. I'll share, actually, there was a time when I was in a battered relationship, and I was quite accustomed to thinking of myself as a victim with lots of societal support. And that all changed very dramatically the one day when I described in great detail all of the things I was doing to keep myself a victim in that relationship. And I couldn't keep doing all of those same things again unconsciously, because I had brought it up to consciousness, all of the ways I was keeping myself a victim. And that allowed me to very soon afterward end that relationship and never again create a victim relationship. So taking responsibility had me see how much power I had in keeping myself in that victim position, as well as how much power I had to shift it and get out and create something else for myself. All right, cool. So, number 6, another way to change your negative belief. What First of all, well, here, I'll say what it is first. Declare your new belief as if it were already true. So when we have a negative belief, that is a belief we don't want, right? We want to change it. So a really great thing to do is just look at and declare what's the opposite of that, right? So in this case, this example I'm using, I'm unlovable. I am lovable. I'm totally lovable, right? I'm not enough. I'm totally enough. So the new belief is I'm lovable. I am enough. And you want to speak it. So part of shifting a negative belief is to step inside this new story, this new belief, as though it were already true. I already am lovable. I already am lovable. There's tons of evidence to show that I'm already lovable. And I'm going to keep being lovable going forward. I am totally worthy of love. And just like in one of the earlier ones when I talked about looking for evidence to reinforce that, as I speak that, I can strengthen that belief moving forward by continuing to notice and look for all of the places where I am loved. So that I strengthen that and I look for all of the places where it is already true, and I keep anticipating that there's going to be more opportunities to look for where that is true. So it's a little bit like in that other example of that entrepreneur who assumes people are inviting him in to make a difference, that they're welcoming him, that they want to partner with him and benefit from the gifts that he has to offer.
You are listening to the Dare to Love podcast with your hosts Sonika Tinker and Christian Peterson, founders of LoveWorks.
You know, if I were kind of playing with that, I could begin to move like that is true and expect that those of you listening to this, for example, are going to benefit and appreciate what it is that is being offered. And I can move as though it is already true that you're loving and appreciating what I'm offering and that it is enough to contribute to you. All right, number 7. Utilize the power of visualization to help you anchor in and reinforce your new belief. Play out your new belief in your mind. Now, visualization, so let me just say a little bit about visualization here. Visualization is sometimes referred to as the theater of the mind, right? So it's basically the ability to see in your mind's eye some event that you'll know will take place in the future. And the mind doesn't know the difference between an imagined and an actual occurrence. There have actually been tons of studies carried out to show that an improvement in performance happens when visualization is included. So when visualizing, I'll explain it first. So when visualizing, it's better to use all of your senses, as if you're really living out in your mind the experience you want to create. You're not just observing or remembering it. So successful visualization requires not just thinking the right thoughts, but also feeling the emotions, right? Vividly imagining the behaviors, seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, tasting, include as many of the senses as you can in the theater play in your mind. So when you imagine yourself in situations, so in my case, right, I would imagine maybe me being with my husband tonight on a date and how I would be if I knew I was lovable and if I knew that everything I did and however I was enough. Like, how might it be to go out to dinner with him, and how might I feel in my body, and how might I be as I eat the food? And I'm just going to play out that date in my mind from this confident, lovable, enough place so that I'm experiencing in my body right now, as if it were happening, everything I want to create inside of this new belief. And as I am imagining that, there are actually so many things that are happening in our bodies as we are imagining these new stories played out, right? Inside these new beliefs, new hormones are being produced, right? Where new neuronal pathways are being formed. We're actually changing ourselves at the moment that we are visualizing. So it's a very, very powerful practice for shifting a new belief. So whatever your new belief is, imagine yourself already believing it and play out how you would move and what you would do and how you would be in these different situations if you really knew that about yourself. And play it out in your mind in advance as much as possible and hold that image of yourself. That's going to allow you to be able to really embody this new belief more completely. So when you're ready, close your eyes and ask yourself, who would I be inside if I really believed the opposite of that limiting belief, right? If I believed this new belief, who would I be? And then make it as real as you can. The other thing you can do after you visualize your new belief playing out, you can also write it out. One of the things that Christian and I have done several times is we will write a narrative. So we will write out, a year into the future in present tense, so imagining that we're writing this a year from now, looking back, and we will say, wow, God, I have had such a breakthrough around my lovability. I never doubt my husband's love. I always accept and receive his compliments. I move through the world with such confidence in who I am and what I have to offer. I'm fearless about expressing all of the parts of me because I know there is nothing about me that is unacceptable. I know that everything about me is completely good at its heart, and everything I share, the more vulnerable that I am, the more people love me, the more real I am about all of the places where I'm imperfect, the more people love me. And I have developed even more friendships in this last year. My husband and I are even more close than we're closer than we've ever been. My children can't wait to hang out with me. I write the narrative the way I'm speaking it in present tense, looking back as if it were already true. And again, that's another way of solidifying and anchoring in and reinforcing your new belief. So play with writing out a narrative after you've completed your visualization. And I'll tell you, it's really fun to read that in the future and look back and see how far you've come. All right, number 8. Again, this is one of my favorite ways to change a negative belief, and that is what I call living in the question. Most of us are trained to think that the way we got to change a belief, right? For me to think I'm lovable, for me to really believe I'm lovable, I got to have a bunch of people loving me first, right? So I got to go out there and get a bunch of people to love me. And then once I get enough, then maybe that will be the thing that changes it for me finally, and then I'll get it. And in actuality, it works the other way around, right? When I shift how I feel, then that actually inspires more people to love me. The more I move through the world like I'm lovable, the more people love me. The more I move like I'm confident, the more people see me that way, right? It kind of works the other way around, this being it first, and then that impacting reality out there. So one way to practice being is what I call living in the question. And it really is my favorite way of shifting beliefs. So if I were doing this one about lovability, for example, a question I might live into is, if I knew I was lovable right now, if I felt lovable, if I knew I was loved, what would I do or say right now? If I were confident, let's just say that's when you want to shift, right? If I were confident right now, what would I do or what would I say? Now, what I love about living in the question about whatever new belief you want to cultivate is that by asking if I were, it kind of creates a little bridge from, our negative belief to our new one, from not believing it to on our way to believing it. If I were lovable, now I've got to imagine myself as lovable to answer the question. So I've already shifted my mind off of unlovable to lovable. If I were lovable right now. So right now is all we got, right? That's all we ever have. And right now, there is always something I can do or say to reinforce my lovability. So for me to be able to ask the question, if I were lovable right now, what would I do or what would I say? And whatever answer I get, I do. God, if I knew I was lovable right now, I would say how much I'm just enjoying being myself, hanging out here talking to you. I really like that I can just trust myself to flow all this stuff out. It's pretty freaking awesome. So I'd say that. And then I ask it again. And I ask it again when I go out on my date with my husband, when I hang out with my kids, when I'm with a new client, when I'm hanging out with my friends. I ask that same question over and over and over again. And that moves me in the direction of feeling more lovable and taking actions connected to that new belief of being lovable. So it's a really great way to shift your focus off of I'm not lovable. Nobody likes me. I'm not enough. I'm never going to have any friends. Right? It gets my attention off of that negative belief and shifts me into my positive belief. Remember, beliefs lead you to a destination. So living in the question is actually kind of steering the boat off of the negative onto the positive. So figure out what word you can put in your own living in the question. All right. 2 more. Number 9, act as if you believe that. Now, this takes visualization, basically acting as if, right? You're taking your visualization, you're living in the question, and you put it into action. I'm just going to move like I'm lovable. Living in the question, the one I just gave you, is a really great way to play with backing up this new belief with action. Pretend like you're lovable. Move through the world like you're confident. Nobody knows you don't believe that. Let yourself play with trying it on. Take how would I hold my body if I knew I was lovable? How would I move my body if I knew I was confident, if I was beautiful, if I was enough? Play with it. Let yourself play the same way little kids play. When I still remember my son, when he was Peter Pan or Captain Hook, all of a sudden he was brave and powerful and he was moving in a completely different way because he was practicing this new way of thinking about himself. So you can do the same thing. Act as if you already believe it. And all of these things that I've given you so far, as you keep reinforcing them, you'll keep gathering more and more evidence, more and more action to back up this new belief being more and more real for yourself. All right, let's see if there's anything else I want to say about that one. All right, acting as if calls you to not only imagine who and how you would be if you already believed what you want to believe, but to ask yourself what you would do differently if you fully embodied that new belief. So living in the question calls for new actions in the moment if the belief were true. Acting as if calls you to take actions as if you already believed these new beliefs. So, again, play with it. Just take it on. Act as if it were true. Go out, take a walk and walk like you're lovable. And just play with embodying it in a different way. All right, and last, number 10. And this is really important, actually, is get support. be with people who reinforce your new belief. Be with people who reinforce that you're lovable, that you're confident, that you're beautiful, that you're enough. Ask people to feed you evidence for where you are, this new belief. What evidence have they gathered for where you're lovable, for where you're enough, for where you're confident, for where you're really good with money, for where, of course, you have great relationships. You elicit support from people who love you. Hang around successful people who are already believing those same beliefs, so you can be in their soup and begin to model what they are, model what they are believing. Be around successful people who are living the life you want to live, having the relationships, being in and living the kinds of relationships you want to have. You probably have already heard this, right? You become like who you are around. So make sure you surround yourself with people who are going to reinforce and bring out your best self. I know that's one of the things people really value in their work here with us at LoveWorks, is we're very much about creating an environment of a community of support where people are empowering and supporting each other's full potential, bringing out each other's best self, looking for that, feeding it, seeing it, reinforcing it. So make sure, if you don't already, get yourself some outside support and help yourself grow. And sometimes that requires being uncomfortable and stepping outside your comfort zone. Because remember, our negative beliefs, as much as we want to change them, they're pretty freaking comfortable, some of them, right? And it's easy to hang out in that soup and staying safe and not changing things. So sometimes when we're with people who live beyond our beliefs and our dreams, our current lifestyle, we can feel pretty uneasy and uncomfortable. We can feel challenged if we work with a coach, for example, who's giving us homework to actually step outside of our normal way of operating and be. So, really the more you want to shift, like the more committed you are, just make sure you have support to help you with that. And remember, it's okay to be uncomfortable, and you don't have to move all the way from a negative belief to a positive one in one fell swoop. Beliefs, these old ones, you've been working on those for a long time. You've been practicing those for a long time. And these new ones will take hold. And I will tell you, the not enough and the unlovable ones that I used to have, they don't grip my life anymore. They still kind of linger around here and there and kind of show up, but they don't inhibit me from being able to create this amazing life that I get to live, because I engaged in a lot of these practices that I just shared with you. So really, beliefs can change. And the important thing to remember is that you really can change them. You have the power to change them. And it really is the most powerful thing you can do for yourself to bring more joy, success, and love into your life. When you successfully change a belief from a constrictive one to a more expansive one, your entire world is going to change. You're going to open up so many new possibilities for yourself. You're going to open yourself up to new relationship possibilities. And what once felt like a closed door is suddenly going to feel like an open window, a breath of fresh air and unlimited space of possibility. So really know that there's nothing you can't do or be when you choose and line up with beliefs that are a match to your full potential, with who you are meant to be, with who you came, when you get to really match up with who you want to be and who you came here to be. All right, well, have fun with that. Have fun with changing your beliefs. And if you get stuck around anything, don't hesitate to contact us. We are totally here for you, rooting for you, and believing in your ability to believe anything you want about yourself, about your life, about relationships, and what's possible. Thanks for hanging out with me. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to the Dare to Love podcast with Sonika Tinker and Christian Peterson, co-founders of LoveWorks. And hey, if you found this podcast to be valuable, would you hit the share button and go ahead and share this with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, or wherever your favorite hangouts are. Thanks so much for sharing the love.